one of the cornerstones of innovation, which is cybersecurity, especially for digital. And obviously, everyone has read about and heard about what's happened over the last several months between Change Healthcare and United Healthcare and now Ascension. We know that cybersecurity is so important to make sure that we've got a button down and a built up cybersecurity infrastructure. And joining us now from one of the premier healthcare law firms in the world, Epstein Becker Green, is Dennis Sapien-Pangindian from Epstein Becker Green, senior counsel there in cybersecurity. And he's going to be talking to us for the next 10 minutes between now and 10:40 about some of the cornerstone elements of a really strong cybersecurity infrastructure. Dennis, thanks for joining us today. Maybe start off by giving everyone a little bit of your background.
Of course, thanks, Dan, and it's a pleasure to be here speaking with you all. I'm a senior counsel here at Epstein Becker Green. Prior to joining the firm, I had served in the U.S. government at the Office of the Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So there I did a lot of fraud and abuse matters, working with DOJ on civil false claims act cases, as well as working on some regulations related to interoperability in electronic health records. So yeah, it's a pleasure to speak with you today.
Perfect. And when you look at cybersecurity in America today, it's obviously under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of threats on a daily basis. And we know there's foreign actors that are attacking not just healthcare security, but electrical grids and water infrastructure and certainly air traffic control tower, things like that. It's getting really bizarre here. But when you think about it on the healthcare side, what are like some of the biggest cybersecurity threats that you've seen?
Sure. Well, I mean, let's look at the numbers, who's targeted, and how it's happening, right? So cybersecurity breaches of the American healthcare system, it's increased in recent years, obviously. The University of Minnesota did a study last year that ransomware attacks more than doubled in the 5 years between 2016 and 2021. Last year alone, HHS's Office of Civil Rights reported or showed that there were over 540 reported healthcare data breaches, potentially affecting almost 122 million individuals and compromising their protected health information. Those numbers were a record for healthcare data breaches by OCR, reported by OCR. And just the year before that, there was less than half that number of data breaches reported, just under 250, and only 1/4 of that number of individuals were affected. So it's a growing threat. And this year alone, there's already been 300 reported data breaches under investigation this year by that same agency, right? So who's targeted? As recent years, large organizations have been building up their security walls and their infrastructure. Smaller providers remain the lower hanging fruit for a lot of these hackers and bad actors. So there's a focus on smaller regional healthcare providers, down market providers such as specialty clinics or medical imaging facilities. And also just in recent months, there's been a growing focus on large organizations that have a lot of affiliates that handle a lot of records as well. So you see the greater impact that's having on data breaches this year and some of the attacks that hopefully we get to talk about. And also attacks against providers, third-party business associates, and the broader supply chain have also spiked the past several months. So you see all these various actors being targeted by hackers for ransomware, things like that, through tactics like phishing attacks, trying to get personnel's credentials inappropriately. You also have some device-focused attacks that are being that's likely going to be an increasing trend in the coming years. And while medical devices themselves are vulnerable to cyber threats, that's not the goal, right? It's not to hack a single pacemaker or insulin pump. It's really to use those devices to gain entry into a larger hospital network or a larger network of healthcare data. But ultimately, targeting human error is the most likely and continues to be the biggest tactic that a lot of these bad actors are using in the healthcare sector. So, and with increased technology such as AI powered cyber attacks, these bad actors are only going to get more adaptable There'll be more highly personalized phishing emails, automated exploitation of system vulnerabilities, malware, things like that that avoid detection by traditional systems. So it's definitely an evolving area, but of all things, human error in the healthcare industry, that's going to be the hot target.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And so let's double click on that for a minute. Talk a little bit about some of the best practices that you've seen with folks like, United, Ascension, Change. I mean, these are brand name institutions in healthcare who were hacked. Talk about some of the best practices there, and when it comes to the human element that you're referring to, what are some things that some of our community can do to really double check to make sure that the human error is mitigated to reduce cybersecurity threats to the nth degree?
Right. And so you have a lot of these industry standards that we can really point to, right? You have NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They have the general framework is you have governance, right? You have policies, procedures, and protocols in place to create an ethos of cybersecurity across the whole organization. You have ways to identify your security risks, and then after that, you protect those security risks. You take those appropriate steps. And then you should also implement regular auditing and monitoring systems to detect potential intrusions and breaches into your cybersecurity space, as well as procedures to respond to those threats, as well as to recover the data that is potentially at risk, right? And so to the extent that these large organizations are implementing them, I think that is always going to be an ongoing effort. And I think that because cybersecurity, especially in healthcare, is an ongoing effort, it's never just a static one and done initiative. There are always going to be evolving vulnerabilities that get overlooked. For instance, the United Change Healthcare, right? The CEO would just testified to Congress that the reason that breach happened was because one of the systems that they had acquired wasn't using multi-factor authentication. It's a typical industry standard practice. Now, why in that acquisition and in the ongoing operation of that system that wasn't caught and overlooked? I think that's a internal risk assessment that they need to make. But I think that that's the risk, right? As you're constantly putting in this effort, and especially in healthcare where there's a lot of evolution and a lot of vertical integration, a lot of transactions happening and acquisitions, I think it's all the more important to really know who your partners are, who your targets are, and as you have new players being added onto your system, that they are also incorporated in your cybersecurity ethos.
That's fantastic. And I think just one more quick question. We've about a minute left here. If there was one major trend that you're seeing in cybersecurity that gives you hope, or maybe that you'd recommend everyone be doing to really secure their platforms, what would that include?
One, I think a good trend that we're seeing is that government is responding, right? You have HHS implementing a cybersecurity framework, but also on the flip side of things, we have the evolution of AI. Just as attackers can use that, people can utilize AI in new ways to shore up their systems, to identify vulnerabilities, to have better monitoring capabilities, to detect breaches and vulnerabilities, as well as identify threat intelligence, predictive analytics. Just as AI is a sword for hackers, it can also be used as a shield for healthcare providers and healthcare entities, right? And so investment in great software and great technologies is going to be the answer to all this, as well as incorporating and updating your systems.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Dennis. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I really appreciate your time out of your busy schedule. And enjoy the beautiful spring weather.
Of course. Thanks, Dan.